Hello YouTube. Today I thought I would show you a little something I've been working on my test world. I really only just completed this. It is a fully automatic cooked chicken and feather farm. It should completely and automatically and without any need for maintenance produce cooked chicken and feathers. So let me go over how this works. First, we have this box right here, which drops my FPS somewhat when I get near it, as it is full of a lot of chickens. They're suspended in the water, which is held up by these signs here, so that any eggs that they lay will just fall down into the stream. You can't see it because of a rendering glitch. Oh, there's some eggs. With water and ice, but there's actually ice beneath this. For some reason you can't actually see ice through water, but if you look through here, you can see there's a little bit of ice right down in there. The eggs are then pulled over into this hopper and transferred through this minecart system back up to back over here. The minecart system is completely irrelevant to the actual farm. It's just that it was a bit low, and I have a tendency to overcomplicate things. And also, it's a challenge for me. So this circuit right here, and this little device right here is completely inconsequential. You could easily just have this egg farm directly depositing into this hopper here. However, the arrangement of hoppers going into the back is important, as well. Actually, I don't think it is important. No, it isn't important. For the way I've set up, it is important, but it wouldn't be too hard to change. You just have to replace this block here with a hopper and have it empty in from the top. So, ignoring all this circuitry, what happens is quite simply here is that this dispenser fires out a lot of eggs into here, and as you can see, the eggs, the chickens were just released. The chickens, they're released by these pistons here, which uses a water flow to force them out of the holding pen, and then that dispenser I was just talking about fires out all these little eggs, to make all these little baby chickens. Meanwhile, those chickens go down here into the cooker machine, where they fall on fire, light on fire, run off the netherrack so that the drops don't burn, because that's how chickens work. They hit the fire and they immediately try to go somewhere else other than where they're standing, which makes sense, right? And what that means is that they'll fall onto the hoppers and die there, dropping the cooked chicken and feathers without actually getting it burned, which would destroy the items. In this way, I can infinitely produce cooked chicken. Then I made a complicated machine up over here, which is also irrelevant. If you have it positioned correctly in terms of height, it will get there in the end anyways. What this does is it uses an item elevator technique, where if you put an item completely surrounded in glass, it will just naturally float right upwards to this building here, where I'm just housing the chicken, and I also have a chicken feathers. And I also have the indicator lights that display the status. Now, of course, this filter thing here works with anything, so if I was to just throw an item in, it just drops it out, which also activates this piston circuitry, activating the pistons. Redstone circuitry that activates the pistons, pushing it up here, as you saw. Now that went pretty fast, I don't know if you caught that. Let me just get some more cooked chicken. And so, for example, it goes through here, gets pushed up, and as you can see, it just rises straight on up. I'm not sure who originally found this bug. I found a video on it on the internet a while ago, and I used it for the system. Alright, here, what I have is a very simple sorting machine, somewhat based on a design I think Sethling made. Where what happens is that this dispenser is locked, or at least, well, item hopper. This hopper can't push out because it's aimed sideways and there's no inventory here. However, this guy here can pull out of this hopper. But I have it locked with a redstone current. You can't really see. It's inverted right here. So that this powers this hopper, preventing it from outputting items. However, once you get enough items in here, this comparator detects the increase in the amount of items to above 1/15th of its capacity, which makes it go to which makes it output a signal of 2. which is far enough to reach this repeater, which boosts the signal onto this torch, which turns off and allows the hopper to pull out items until this goes back down to its level. So this quite often just simply pulses real fast, because, you know, items are coming in and going out real fast. This same thing, anyways, the same thing over here also happens with feathers, and thus deposits in these chests. As you can see, I've collected quite a lot of feathers and cooked chicken. I also have a hopper over here that takes anything that wasn't sorted out by the sorting machine and puts it here. If you are competent or lazy, or both, what you can do, confident about your system, I should say, you don't actually need to have the second sorting thing here, or you could even just deposit everything in one chest, which I imagine a lot of people will do. However, being me, I like to overcomplicate things, and thus added a sorting machine. So anything that doesn't get sucked out by this feather detector and this chicken detector will just travel along this hopper chain all the way down to here to that chest I just showed you down in here. This chest here is it just contains anything that got into the system that doesn't belong in either of these chests. Now, any uncooked chicken, which it's kind of an interesting point about how that gets in there. It's not actually because they don't get burned correctly. Because if they didn't get burned correctly, they just wouldn't die, and you wouldn't get their drops at all. I don't know how that stone got in there, and the gunpowder and arrows are from creepers and skeletons that have fallen in this mob pathway for the chickens. Now, the uncooked chicken actually happens to do with a glitch with these baby chickens when they grow up. As you can see, they're all pushing against each other, and some of them are getting stuck in the wall. And when they grow up, their collision box expands, and thus occasionally some of them will suffocate in the wall. And then the feathers and uncooked chicken comes out here along with the rest of the grown chickens. And then they get sucked up by this hopper down here, which takes the items around to this chain up here. Through the ground and down. I kind of covered it all up over here. Those hoppers at the bottom of the cooker, by the way. Those guys down there, they also go into that, down into here, too. In this dropper. Let's see. Now, I'm not really going to provide a tutorial on how to build it step by step, because it'd be a nightmare for me to rebuild this. I'd much prefer only spending the time to build this on like a survival world or something. But I can explain the basic concepts of how the redstone itself works. So what happens here is okay, so let's start with this RS NOR latch here. Now, if you don't know what an RS NOR latch is, basically it's a memory cell. This torch here is keeping this torch off. However, if I force this torch off by powering this line on, then this no longer outputs and lets this torch keep it on. So basically, in summary, it's a memory cell, meaning that it remembers which line was last on. So if I was to power this one, it would switch over, and this line would turn off. What happens when this turns off is it unlocks this pulsar, which activates the dispenser over here, which shoots out all those eggs. And the way I turn this latch back off is I have a comparator here that simply detects if there's any items in the dispenser at all. And once there isn't any, this torch turns on and it goes through this monostable circuit, it's basically a pulse limiter thing, so that when there isn't anything in there, this is on constantly, which would prevent this RS NOR latch from ever changing states if this was held on constantly. However, this limiter here, this RS NOR latch system, or what it's, the pulse, I don't know, whatever they're called, monostable circuit, that's what they're called, I think. It will basically prevent the signal from staying on, because when this turns on, this turns off immediately, turning off this redstone line for a moment, turning this torch on. However, pretty quickly, this repeater, which is on a delay, turns it back on. So basically, it allows me to just have it off for a moment when this torch turns on, but not when it turns off, allowing me to pulse this torch, and thus swapping this thing back to normal. It also sends a redstone signal over to here, where it goes to this repeater and activates this dropper, which shoots out cactus. They all shoot out cactus, as that is an infinitely available item through my giant cactus farm here. And the idea here is it's just basically just an item timer, because after 5 minutes, any item that's lying on the ground will despawn, as you just saw. And then after that, so So what happens when it releases the pressure plate is it turns this torch back on, as you saw, which activates the next dispenser. And since it takes 5 minutes for this for each timer to work, I have 4 of them to create a 20-minute timer. As that is roughly how long it takes for chickens to mature. It's actually more like 18 minutes, but that's probably good because there's a bit of randomness involved, so it's good to have a couple extra minutes allowance so I don't have any baby chickens going through. Now, once this... and now I have another pulse limiter thingy over here, whatever it's called, set up so that it's when it's unpressed that it activates, just like everything over here, because it's fine for this thing to be kept on constantly, as it is by those as it is by those torches under there. However, because they only activate when the torch turns on, and no other times. However, this circuit here would not act nicely if I did that, so I have another pulse limiter here, set up in reverse, so that when this line turns off, it activates simply by swapping whether it's the inverted or the non-inverted that has the longest delay. So as you can see, it's the inverted line that has the delay, while the non-inverted just relays straight on. The repeater is necessary, or else you would get backfeed, and this thing would basically turn into a clock, which we wouldn't want. This right here is part of the indicator circuit. I'll get back to that. Now what that does is when it pulses over here, it inverts this. It goes to an inverter, as it did over there, so that it's just one single pulse when this timer activates. What that does is it goes over here along this bridge, because I built this RS NOR latch backwards by accident. So I had to flip the directions in which the wiring was going in. It goes this RS NOR latch and turns this off, opening up the pistons. Then I go through this long repeater delay, which takes up a massive amount of space and resources. Sorry for that interruption. I just have to deal with something real quick. So, this repeated delay here, after a long time, goes through here and activates the other side of the RS NOR latch, turning this memory cell over, whatever you call it, closing all these pistons, allowing this to activate to hold chickens again, rather than flushing them out. I also have this output right here is also an indicator light, so I'll get back to that. And this wire down here controls these repeaters here. Oop. I'll get back to that. But this right here controls these lower pistons. Over right now there's a lot of baby chickens. But yeah, that activates this line. I also have this wire up here to control these upper pistons. But the last thing that happens when this all activates is it activates this wire, which heads back all the way over here, back to the beginning, activating this first RS NOR latch, allowing more eggs to be produced. So that means that this entire system here goes on a single loop of adding chickens, waiting for them to grow up, and dispensing them. As you know, I just heard that activate, so that means it's been 5 minutes for now. That's basically how that all works. This system, I think I already explained how they hit this and they get hurt, so they run off, which prevents the drops from dying. It has to be 2 blocks here, or else they could potentially run back onto the fire. It's just a safety line. As I said before, this item elevator is not needed. I just wanted to get the items up to surface level, and I believe I already explained that. So let me explain the control system real quick. I mean the indication system real quick. So this first portion of the indicator system is really quite simple. Realize on the fact that after 15 blocks, the redstone signal stops working because it's finite distance redstone. So what I have here is I have each one of these pressure plates is hooked up in sequence to a different spot on this wire. So this end one hooks right up to the end, this last one. The next one hooks up 1 blocks closer, and the repeater powering the block that's on is the same thing as it powering it directly, by the way. The next one goes underneath and goes to the other side, which is 2 blocks down from the end. And then the third block down is powered by this pressure plate. What that means is that, depending on which one's activated, it will only conduct a certain distance. So, since I have this one activated, since this one's activated right now, this means that it is 2 blocks shy of the end. Shy of 15 blocks. So, meaning that since this is closer, this would extend all the way to here. However, since this is 2 blocks away from there, the 15 blocks limit runs out right here. And so what I did was I had another 4 repeaters here, which relays the signal over to here. And using that same distance system, I am basically relaying the strength of it. Now I know it could use comparators for this, but I decided to use just simple repeaters because it's just a little more convenient and resource friendly. Although I wasn't really thinking about resources, to be honest. This wire goes to here, relayed to here, and onto this wire. As you can see, it's powering 2 of the blocks, but not the other 2. You can tell that because there's little particle effects, even though it's barely glowing. What that means is that on the inside here, you can see that the 2 of these 4 lights are powered, and this is my timer. And this displays how much longer I have till the chickens are harvested. And that goes by a delay of 5 minutes per light, because every one of these item timers over here goes by a delay of 5 minutes, because that's how long it takes for an item to despawn. Now, these 2 lights here basically indicate what it's doing if this timer is off. So, processing is merely directly hooked up to this RS9 latch over here. So it basically says processing if these piston gates are open and they're being flushed out. And that just basically means it's releasing the chickens. And then prepping basically means it's adding eggs. And I determined that by the sole fact that if it's prepping, then it isn't ejecting the chickens, and it isn't running the timer. So just have a simple AND gate here, hooked up to both this processing light and to this timer directly right here, as you can see. And this just runs around over to here and powers this light. I had to do a little work to get it compacted in like that. As you can see, not the most clean method ever, but it works. And so this light just is on if neither of these are on. That's how it works in the end. So that is the fully automatic cooked chicken and feather farm made by pop1040, and I'll see you guys next time.